So you're a single mom and you're thinking about starting a business, but you're not sure if you should or even what kind of business you should start. That's what we're here to talk about today. If you're new here, I'm Jen, single mom, artist, and entrepreneur, and this channel is all about building a life that you love and doing it on your own. Now, you may find that when you talk to other people in your life about potentially starting a business as a single mom, the first thing they'll say to you is, "Oh, you can't do that, it's not stable." Have you been in the job market today? Because nothing about it is stable. Companies are hiring people for less than they're worth. They're demanding more than they ever have before out of employees. And they're letting people go for really no reason at all. And in the majority of states here in the US, an employer doesn't have to have a reason to fire you. They can just decide they want to pay somebody less to do your same job. So they'll get rid of you and they'll hire somebody else in new and pay them less than you were making. So having a job this day and age isn't exactly the definition of stability. So yes, entrepreneurship, starting a business absolutely does come with risk. But when you really look at the whole big picture of the world that we live in today, I don't personally think the risk is really that much bigger than working for an employer. That said, most of us are working day jobs when we start our businesses. I'm still working a day job currently, even though I run 2 small businesses. So there's no reason you can't do both. In the end, building something of your own and working for yourself can have a lot of advantages that working for someone else doesn't have. One, it can allow you to be in charge of your time in a way that you are not when you are beholden to an employer. And especially for a single mom, that can be a really big deal. Childcare is often a really big issue for a lot of women. And being in charge of your time, setting your schedule, being able to make those calls of how and when you're going to work can be a giant advantage for women in that situation. So, you're thinking about starting a business. You think that it would be a great idea. You love the idea of being an entrepreneur, but you don't know what kind of business you should start. I always recommend that you start by identifying what your strengths as an entrepreneur are. Your experiences as a single mom can greatly contribute to your success as an entrepreneur. You've got skills that you're not thinking about and that other people don't possess that could definitely help propel you to success. The resilience alone that you have gained by raising kids by yourself is enormous, and resilience is definitely something that all entrepreneurs need. So if you don't have resilience, you're not going to be successful with this. But single moms have more resilience than anybody else I've ever met in my entire life. Single moms, girl, you got it. So I've put together a list of questions to ask yourself in order to help identify those strengths that are really going to help you. And by knowing what your strengths are, that can make it easier to identify what kind of opportunities are right for you. I would highly suggest getting a pen and pencil to write these questions down. Number 1, what tasks do you enjoy doing? Either in your current roles or in past roles that you've had before. Do you love caring for others? Are you kind of a caretaker by nature? Do you love cooking? Do you love organizing? Knowing what you love doing, or what you at least really enjoy doing, will help you to decide if an opportunity is right for you. Number 2 is, what tasks do you find come really naturally to you? What are things that you don't have to really try very hard to do really well? Are you really great at organizing things without even really thinking about it? Are you a really great writer? Does that just kind of come naturally? Do you have a really big knack for just reading people and knowing what they want and need? That's important. What are you good at without even trying? When do you feel most productive and in the flow of things? For me, it's when I'm doing something creative. When I'm doing something creative, I am on a roll. I have to remind myself to stop and take breaks when I'm working on something that's a creative process. So when I'm making my glass stuff, once I'm like in the flow of working, I don't want to stop. So for me, that's when I feel the most productive. What makes you feel productive? What skills have you developed as a single mom that you believe could be applied to entrepreneurship? Have you figured out how to multitask like a champ? Probably you have. That's almost a given, right? Have you figured out how to manage your time amazingly effectively? I still struggle with that some days. Some days I'm on it, and some days it's just pathetic. What are you the most proud of in your personal and or professional life? Are you the most proud of your dedication? Are you the most proud of the way that you care for the people in your life? Are you the most proud of your optimism? What about either your personal or professional life makes you really happy about yourself? What makes you feel proud? What are some of the biggest challenges you've overcome, and what skills helped you overcome them? For me, one of the biggest challenges I've ever overcome is feeling like a failure when my first business failed. Businesses fail all the time, but it doesn't mean you failed. And it took me a long time to make that connection. It took me a long time to not feel like a complete failure. And I think the biggest skill that helped me to overcome that was being able to look back on that experience objectively, was learning how to put my feelings aside and think about the experience as a whole, what led to the business not making it, and what I could have done differently to make the business make it. And when I realized that the things that I could have done differently weren't things that were within my control, that's when I realized I didn't fail, the business did. I wasn't a failure because I didn't neglect to do some big important thing that made the business fail. The business failed because the economy was at a place where people weren't spending the amount of money that we needed them to be spending in order for that business to work. And there were other contributing factors to why the business failed, but the business didn't fail because of my lack of doing something specific. Now, were there mistakes made along the way? Absolutely, there were mistakes made along the way. Nothing in life is going to be mistake-free. In fact, if it was, what would we ever learn? We would never learn anything from that at all. The mistakes that were made, I did learn from. So that's not a failure. So yeah, just the biggest skill that came into play for me getting past that feeling of failure was learning how to look at the situation with objectivity and play through the different scenarios of what maybe could have been done differently and what couldn't have been done differently, and allowing myself to really see the situation clearly without this veil of emotion and grief, which, I mean, initially when you lose something important to you, there's going to be a period of grief, right? So that emotion and grief is part of the experience. Some of that just needs time. I feel like I'm rambling. I've gotten off course. What do people often compliment you on or come to you for advice about? For instance, people tell me all the time that I come off as really confident, and that always surprises me because I don't feel like I'm that terribly confident, but people tell me all the time, "You're so confident." I get told that I'm intimidating because I'm confident, which is hysterical to me because I'm the least intimidating person on the planet. So I get complimented on how confident that I come off. And I think that in the business world, that's a big advantage. When people see you as confident, that also means that they see you as trustworthy generally, because if you are selling a product, for instance, and you come across as not confident in that product, then people don't find you trustworthy and they won't buy that product from you. So that compliment that's a big compliment. It really is. It surprises me. It catches me off guard every time someone says it, and I'm a little surprised by it still. but it is a big compliment. So what kind of compliments do you get? What do people say about you? What unique perspective or ideas do you bring to the world from your personal experiences? Maybe you grew up in a really unique environment, so your idea of child rearing is very, very different from most people's. If so, that's something you could really capitalize on. Maybe you've done extensive study on ancient female roles in the world, and I'm just making this up as I go. And so because of that, you have a really unique perspective on marriage and families, or I don't know, anything. What unique perspective or idea do you bring to the world? And the follow-up question to that question is, how can you harness that? How can you use that in a business? I'd also like you to think about how your passions and values have influenced your actions and decisions. So how has the thing that matters most, whatever that thing is that matters the most to you in this world, what's that thing? And most of us have at least one thing that we're really super passionate about. How has that thing that you're passionate about, how have your ideas towards that affected your actions and decisions in life? Maybe you're super passionate about space. So you chose to study astronomy in college. The things we're passionate about and the values that we bring to life are important and can be a springboard for our future choices. So what those things are and how they've affected the way you've lived your life so far are important to consider in your future. Okay, my last question for you to think about is, how do you excel in comparison to other people? I think the way that I excel most in comparison to other people is that I never stop trying to learn. I never stop trying to learn new ideas, new ways to approach things, new things to do. I definitely am a lifelong learner, and I feel like we all should be, but some people that comes a lot more easily for than others. And a lot of people a lot of times will say that they want to learn new skills, but they won't actually take the actions to do it. I am one of those people that I will jump in foot first and decide, well, for instance, I decided to start this YouTube channel. I've never edited a video in my life before I started doing this. And I just decided I want to do this, which means I have to learn how to do this. So I learned how to do it as I went. And that is not necessarily the ideal way to learn, but there's value in that also, because by learning as I went, obviously my skills get better as time goes on, but more importantly, I didn't allow that lack of knowledge to hold me back from what I wanted to do. And so that's, I think, the thing that I excel in the most. I don't allow my not knowing how to do something to stop me from actually doing it. I just figure it out as I go, because that's what it takes, right? I won't use not knowing how to do things as the excuse not to ever do them. And a lot of people will say, oh, I really want to do this, but I don't know how. And instead of figuring out how, they'll let I don't know how be the reason that they never move forward. And I don't do that. So I think that is the biggest way in which I excel from most people, is that I'm not willing to let my lack of knowledge of how stop me from taking steps forward. I see that as a gigantic advantage, especially because I'm a creative. As an artist and someone who does creative things, I will mess and maneuver until I make something work. And just as a small example, I like to incorporate things into my glass work that are not just glass. So for instance, sometimes I want to incorporate crystals into a piece, and I have to figure out how to make them work in that piece. I have to figure out a structural way to put them in that piece that won't fall apart over time. So that is always a learning curve. That is always an act of figuring it out as I go, because there's no manuscript on how to add non-glass things into your glass. because that's not a part of traditional stained glass. So there's no course somewhere on how to do that. I just have to figure that out as I go. So I use that skill of figuring that out as I go in my business day to day, in my life day to day, and I think that's a gigantic check mark in my favor. So I want you to reflect on these questions and your answers, because reflecting on these questions and your answers can help you identify your strengths, can help you identify the things that you care about and the things that you maybe want to pursue. And I want you to remember, if you're a single mom like me, your journey as a single mom is not a drawback. In fact, it is a powerful, powerful tool to help propel you into success for the future, because you already know adversity. You already know hardship. You already know struggle. And those things are always a part of starting an entrepreneurial endeavor at the beginning. Hardship, struggle, all of those are part of it. You already know how to do that, which means you can get past that and springboard through it to the other side to find success and to take control of your life. And that is what this is all about. That is what my passion in this world is all about, is taking control of my own life and helping other women to do the same. Because we can. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that this list of questions is helpful to you. I hope that you can find some morsels in there to help guide you in making decisions in the future and figuring out where you want to go and how you're going to get there. And if you have specific questions, ask them in the comments. I'm going to answer them as much as I can. I would love to help build us all a giant roadmap for how to get from where we are today to where we want to be. And none of us is an island. Community is important for our success. And I want to be part of that. I want to be part of building that. So ask your questions in the comments, or even direct message them to me. I don't care either way. And let's start a conversation. Let's build a roadmap together to get from where we are to where we want to be. Thanks so much for watching. I will talk to you soon.